What's going on, y'all? Well, as you can see, we're gonna be taking a look in our sexual obsessions with that ass. Now, you'll be able to tell immediately this is not me because I do not have that sexy ass accent. But nevertheless, if you do want to watch the full video, the link will be down in the description. I've had family, I've had friends of mine who all want to know why I believe in God so much and why I believe it's important for everybody to believe in God. There's an underlying message that's in all religions, all faiths, all sacred texts. You are not your personality, your emotions, and your thoughts. You are greater than that. That whole message gets completely lost and thrown away in science. Everything has a concrete reason for it. Everything in science and in this world today is so physical. We genuinely only experience life through our senses and through the visual and physical dimensions. All these other sacred texts and these religions have said that there's way more than that. Shit, science has said that there's more than 3 dimensions. But when you live in the physical, that's only 3. Where it's going to jump in right here is it's going to be explaining what's going on now and why we are the way that we are. When humans don't believe in God, when they don't believe in something higher than themselves, they only live in the physical. This becomes an obvious problem when all of a sudden every single thing in your reality, in your existence, is based off of its physical value. To me, this is why I believe that men, in particular men, have become so desensitized towards the female human being. Women are sex objects. They are trophies. They are these things because we are completely obsessed with the ass, with the pussy, with the tits. Before, when we were spiritual human beings, there was a sense of morality and there were rules. We didn't cross those lines and we didn't break those rules. It's not suppressing your true self. It's being more than just an animal.
On the one hand, we have a conventional high culture individual, which is perceived as a whole, with evident personhood and pre-civilizational figuring, where femaleness equals fertility, and her individuality is non-existent. For Palia, Hollywood and modern cinema, along with electronic media, is an example of what she understands to be a resurrection and eruption of pagan spirit. One of the key differences between Abrahamic religions and pagan ones is that the first is based on logos, the word, where imagistic thinking is suppressed and representation of divinities in art is considered to be an idolatry. On the other hand, paganism is all about visual representation. Palia notes that the whole essence of Western cinema is that you can watch a film without listening to it at all, but still understand the crux of it, as the story is primarily told by means of images. Now, in the case of objectification of women and reducing their value to sexuality, could be understood as a side effect of pagan revival, which is supported by neo-Jungian understanding of idolatry and female objectification. The primary reason why Judeo-Christian religion rejected idolatry, according to Jungian psychology, is the shift from a part to a whole, from a fragment to unity, and from finite to infinite. The major ontological difference between pagan idols and biblical God is the feature of locality. Namely, pagan gods have a local power with local competencies and individual storylines, whereas biblical God is ever-present, way less anthropomorphized than pagan gods, and undergoes an evolution from a god who expresses emotions and takes sides in wars to hyper-abstract concept of logos. Therefore, an objectification and reduction of the opposite sex to a body part is primarily reminiscent of a condition where a tangible fragment is more valuable than an abstract concept that stands for something.
The addicted lover unconsciously invests the finite fragments of his experience with the power of the unity, which he can never experience. This shows up again in the interesting phenomenon of pornography collections. Men, under the fragmenting energy of the addict, will often amass huge collections of photographs of nude women, and then arrange them in categories like breasts, legs, and so on. Then they will lay the breasts out side by side and delight in comparing them. And they will do the same with legs and other bits and pieces of the female anatomy. They marvel at the beauty of the parts, but they can't experience a woman as a whole being, physically or psychologically, and certainly not as a unity of body and soul, a complete person with whom they could have an intimate human relationship.
Imagine how normalized it is that a male can simply derive sexual satisfaction from gazing at a fragment of his opposite sex, while you would naturally find it odd if female had a picture of male shoulders in her room, serving a function of sexual gratification. The basic differences relevant to this video video between hemispheres is as follows. Right hemisphere is responsible for global attention, recognition of the whole as a gestalt, an emergent property which cannot be reduced to its constituent parts, perceiving living things, openness to new experience, intuition and empathy. On the other hand, left hemisphere's attentional mode is local and concrete. It perceives world as composed by individual building blocks. It understands world methodologically and analytically and is blind to the whole. Prosopagnosia, which is a condition where a patient is unable to recognize the whole, a gestalt. This person could not recognize faces of people and also couldn't recognize objects instantly. For example, when doctor gave him a rose, he didn't know what he was holding there, but eventually by inductive reasoning, recognizing its parts such as thorns, stem and petals, he got to an aha moment, guessing that it was a rose. From this we could reasonably describe modern society as suffering from a metaphorical prosopagnosia, where everything acquires its value by proximate and fragmentary utility. A society where part and the fragment is hypertrophied and enlarged to the point where it dwarfs the whole, making it insignificant. This is reminiscent of a passage from Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. In the chapter called Redemption, we read,
And as I came out of my solitude and crossed over the bridge, the first time then I didn't believe my eyes, and I looked again, and said at last, that is an ear as big as a person. And I looked more closely, and really, beneath the ear something was moving that was pitifully small and pathetic and thin. And in truth, the gigantic ear sat upon a little slender stalk, but the stalk was a human being. If one used a magnifying glass, one could even recognize a tiny, envious miniature face, even a bloated little soul dangling on the stalk.
This is a concept that Nietzsche refers to as an inverse cripple, where rather than lacking an organ, one exhibits an overdevelopment of it. Nietzsche points to the modern-day obsession with hyper-focused and specialized geniuses who have one-dimensional talents. However, this concept very much extends to our topic, where someone's sexually pronounced body parts can dwarf the whole persona, making it valueless. Moreover, the left hemisphere domination shows itself not only in reducing whole to its part, but rather in act of dehumanization of the opposite sex. One of major differences between left and right hemisphere is that the latter perceives living things with its dynamism and inner essence, whereas left hemisphere perceives dead, static objects with no entrails. Dehumanization of the opposite sex is all over the place, seeing women as animals in sexual entertainment, referring to them as a chick, using a B word, which means a female dog, a bimbo, someone whose value comes from only external appearance. Plastic surgery, which ossifies facial expression into static mask, further exacerbates the situation. The Botox basically freezes female expression into a two-dimensional symbol with no liveliness and dynamism, excluding all the intricate details of facial structure that account for someone's unique individuality. Study done by Sarah Jervis in 2012 explores what's known as sexual body part recognition bias hypothesis. According to this, female sexual body parts are recognized better when presented in isolation than when presented in the context of entire bodies. The two experiments conducted showed that both males and females perceive female bodies with local attention rather than global attention, reducing the whole body to the sexual part. Also, the experiment demonstrated that female body parts are actually better recognized in isolation rather than in the context of the whole body. On the flip side, male body parts were better recognized when presented as a whole, rather than in isolation. The very fact that female body parts can be decontextualized that easy reminds us of Martin Heidegger's concept of deworlding. Deworlding is the process whereby an object of investigation is ripped from its worldliness and the nexus of being. As we can see, we start treating people with this cold approach, as if we desire to have a model of a real car without inner parts, thus the prevalence of what's known as a trophy wife. Now, the current situation with dehumanization and sexual objectification cannot go on without major consequences. Females who are objectified report more chronic stress and social anxiety. Males blunt their ability to engage in emotionally rich relationships.